it's Emily with Miss Anita's Crafts, and today I'm going to do another Shrinky Dink craft, only this one's going to be a little more functional than some of the ones that I've done in the past. And I will show you how to use a couple of cool tools too in the end. I'll talk about some of the supplies that I have out here. So for Shrinky Dinks, you want to make sure you have colored pencils. I just picked out the colors I'm going to be using, so they're all sharp and ready to go. I have a hole puncher, which is important to do right before it goes into the oven, because once it comes out, if you want this to be a charm or used for anything else to hang, you won't be able to put a hole in it after it's shrunken down because plastic will be too thick. So I also have a couple of cookie cutters, which I think are always good to buy whenever you see them on sale. Sometimes right after a holiday, you'll see, like after Valentine's Day, you might see a whole bunch of hearts or cupids or something like that. Just really cheap on clearance somewhere. I just bought a whole bunch of little snowflakes that were in the Christmas stuff, so all those were on clearance at Walmart, and so you can just buy these whenever you see them if it's a good shape that you don't already have. So I'll be using the star, and then I'm also going to be drawing just a basic rectangle shape. I'm going to use the white, shiny white Shrinky Dinks. There's a couple different packs. This is the older one, so if you buy this one, that's the same thing. It says bright white just right here, and then this is what the new pack looks like. They change it up a little bit, but those are both the same thing. So this is what it looks like when you get it out of the pack. Just shiny white plastic, a little bit transparent, so you know if you put it over something and you're trying to trace, you can sort of see some shapes. Nothing with too much detail. So you kind of have to freehand a little bit or trace a shape on to do these. You can't really see through it enough to trace fully if you're doing something with a lot of detail. So I have here the piece that I'm going to be using for the project that I'm doing today. So on one side it's still shiny, just like the one that I just showed, but on the other side I've taken one of these little sanding blocks to it, and I've actually scratched I did like a diagonal scratch all over. I did a diagonal scratch this way all over, and then I also did a back and forth, so a vertical and then also horizontally, so I have scratches going everywhere. And if I just turn this so the light hits it, you can, well, if the light will hit it at all, you can tell it's very scratchy and rough, and now it is the texture of the Frosted Rough and Ready Shrinky Dink. So you'll be able to use colored pencils on it now. You won't have to use marker or something like that. So this one's going to be really fun. I'm going to start with just tracing the one shape that I'm doing for one of them. And if you want to start with a regular pencil, that's sometimes a nice idea because you never know if you're going to mess up. Cutting out too many angles with Shrinky Dink paper can be a little tricky, because if you're not really careful, your scissors can go too far and they can slip really fast and then sometimes cut off a piece that you needed. There's my little star shape, but a star is pretty easy because they're just straight little snips, so you don't have to do any fancy maneuvers with the scissors, and that should be pretty easy. I'm also going to go about the height of the star, and I'm going to do like a rectangle shape that's about the same size, if I can kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'll just use this bottom part as my one side because that's an easy way to get a nice flat edge, and the rest of it will be right here. And I'm just pressing very light because I know if I press harder, I won't really be able to erase on here because it's colored pencil. I'm going to be adding a little tiny bit more detail to this, but not a whole lot, and you guys will know exactly what I am doing, what kind of design this is going to be. And then I will get them cut out, colored, and put into the oven. Bob and Patrick. I'm gonna cut them out now. I got a little extra pencil dust coming off of there, so I'm just gonna cut. This one's really easy to cut because they're all little straight lines, and save all the extra little scrappy pieces. You don't want to go too small with Shrinky Dinks, but you know, a little section like this of course is fine, so don't cut right through that. And I always, when I'm giving sheets of this to the kids to work with, I always start with, even if they're going to eventually get the whole sheet, I don't give them the whole sheet because they will draw a little tiny something in the center and they will cut all their way through and then cut that little piece out and the whole sheet has a big tear through the middle. So they're not wasteful. I make sure I cut it into 4s and I just give them a quarter of this and then they can always come back and get more. It's a little more manageable and less opportunity for waste. So the star is going to be a little tricky cut out. I'm going to make a square around him. I probably will not save these little pieces, but as you can see, if you plan it to cut right to the little peak, the little corner of the star, and don't go beyond that. This is where you're going to have to get your really precise cutting skills and make sure that you only go to that part right there, because if you go too far, there's no going back. Can't piece it back together, and they don't really glue very nicely if they come out of the oven broken. So cut just to where you need to. These colors come out a little faint, I know, so it's looking a little light and pastel. But in the oven, you'll see what happens, because they are going to, all that color gets a little bit just sort of condensed into one little area, and so it'll look a little bit darker when it comes out. Okay, and you can also tell if there's an area that you didn't sand very well with your sanding block, because it will be a little harder to color on. So you can always keep the sanding block near you, and if that happens, there's a little areas where it's like kind of skidding, slipping around a little bit, then just resand that area and go right over it, and it's real easy to do. Now before they go into the oven, I'm just going to put a hole right where I want them to be able to attach to something. So I'm going to put it not too close to the edge, right up there. Okay, so if I was too close to the edge, it might get a little rip in there, and that's not what I want. And I think I'm also going to do SpongeBob's right on his forehead, kind of as much in the center as I can. Okay, and those are ready to go into the oven. I'm going to stick them on the pan, put it in my little toaster oven that I only use for crafts, turn it up to 400, keep a close eye on it, probably a couple minutes because the oven's cold, but don't go anywhere because you want to stay right near them. These guys will curl up. It'll look like they're kind of stuck together. It looks like you want to reach in there and rescue them, but just leave them. They will eventually flatten out, and then you can pop it out of the oven real quick with an oven mitt and then let them cool. All right, here we go. Fresh out of the oven, still a little warm, and I told you the colors will come out a little more vibrant because they all shrink together, and so they're all in one little spot. They did kind of curl up. They look like they're sticking together, but they always flatten out, and they always do what they're supposed to in the oven. So I'm going to go put this pan back, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do to these to turn them into a cute little pair of earrings. Right. So I've got 2 split rings, and I have 2 matching earring hooks. So these are split rings because they're open on one side. Actually, some people call them jump rings. I call them split rings because they're split right here. They have an opening on the side. Actually, some people call split rings those tiny, tiny little key rings. I hate those things because you rip up your fingernails trying to get them open. I don't know who's supposed to be able to open those, but I can't. So anyway, what I call split ring, I actually call a jump ring. I use kind of a manageable size. I don't know, whatever that is, like a 1/4 of an inch or so. Something that's easy to hold on to, so it's not gonna, be hard to grip, because you have to hold it by something while you use your snippers, your little needle nose pliers, to sort of just force it open a little bit. You don't want to bend it too much, because you know what happens to wire if you start bending it too much. All right, so then I hold on to it like this while I've got it opened up. I drop the charm on there, okay, and then I drop the earring hook on there like that. Whoa, not like that. Like this. All right, and then I close it right up, okay, just till the ends of the little jump ring are touching. I'm gonna try to get that to focus. Just until the ends are touching, and so you're not going to have anything slipping out, okay? Now the back of it is a little boring. You just got shiny plain white on the back, which is better than weird grayish see-through clear color like the Frosted Rough and Ready. What you could do though is if you want to sand both sides, you could do the same design on the other side. You wouldn't see through it. You would just see, you just have to be careful to kind of match it up, or just something similar on the back, or color the back, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to do the same thing to our SpongeBob one, okay? Open up our little split ring, just real quick. All right, hold it in place with the plier. Drop them on. This is where you can really tell if you cut that, if you put that little hole, if you punched it a little too close to the edge, it could possibly break if you're yanking on it too hard at this point. Okay, but that's it. Really super simple. Sadly, I can't wear these because I don't have pierced ears, but these are really cute for somebody who does. And I think it's kind of fun to not include their eyes, their faces, their nose, mouth, because sometimes that face can be a little hard to do, you know, to get it to look just right. These are totally recognizable without all that. Because they're colors and they're just so iconic. You know, everybody knows SpongeBob and Patrick by their colors and their shape. You don't have to put the face on there for it to be recognizable. I think they're super cute. Yeah.